morning, everyone. So grateful to have your company here as I'm Christy Paul, and we're watching some breaking news this morning.
I'm Martin Savage in for Victor Blackwell.
All righty, we have got a new launch of a missile by North Korea this morning.
North Korea is interrupting what is, of course, President Trump's second full day of overseas diplomacy.
Well, here's what we know about this new missile test. It was overnight. It comes just hours before the president is set to give this major speech in Saudi Arabia. He'll address more than 50 Islamic leaders to outline his vision for U.S.-Muslim relations.
This launch happened a short while ago, so let's bring you up to speed on the events that are unfolding on the Korean Peninsula right now. And for that, we turn to CNN international correspondent Will Ripley, who's reported many times from inside North Korea. He joins us on the telephone from Tokyo. Will, what do we know this morning about this launch?
Hey, Martin. Well, certainly the timing is interesting, and we can never read the minds of the North Koreans. But the fact that they have launched this medium-range ballistic missile, it flew several hundred miles, landing in the waters off the Japanese coast, sort of forcing themselves into the global conversation yet again, just hours before this major speech by the U.S. president. You have to wonder if the North Korean regime, led by Kim Jong-un, is trying to send a message that they want to be at the center of the attention of the world. I mean, this is one of the motivations behind these ballistic missile tests, in addition, of course, to the scientific knowledge that their rocket scientists gain every time. But just a week ago, we were talking about what is believed to be North Korea's most successful missile launch ever. The missile that they launched landed just 60 miles, the United States says, from the Russian Pacific Fleet in Vladivostok. This missile took a more usual trajectory, the kind that we see from North Korea, where it flew towards Japan, landed in the waters off Japan, no damage to any ships, fishing vessels in the area, but there was also no warning. So obviously, whenever North Korea does this, there is the potential to put people in danger. Interestingly, the missile was fired from the Pukchong region of North Korea, which is home to that country's largest power plant and also reportedly home to North Korean labor camps as well. And now it appears that Pyongyang is also using this region as a launching point for these medium-range ballistic missiles. We saw them test a similar missile like this back in February as well. 10 attempted missile launches during the Trump administration so far. It's really remarkable to think of the pace. It has continued to move very rapidly with North Korea under the new U.S. administration.
Well, you followed North Korea quite a bit, and I'm wondering, you alluded to it in the very beginning. We're all wondering it this morning. Was this delivered on the part of North Korea to, once again, steal back the spotlight? Historically, is this something they've done?
It absolutely is. And even though the North Koreans, when I've been in the country, and I was there last month during 2 failed missile launches, and they will deny that there are any outside influencing factors in why they choose to launch missiles at their particular time. But clearly this is a message. It's a message to the United States. It's a message to the new South Korean president, President Moon, who now there have been 2 missile launches during his very short time in office. He just won the election back on May 9th. And it's a message to the world at large that North Korea is making progress in their missile program, demanding the world's attention, and it's also symbolizing not even symbolizing, it's stating to the world that they're not going to give up this program. They're not going to give up their missile program. They're not going to give up their nuclear program. They have told me repeatedly they don't care about sanctions. They say they're not worried about that. Now, if China really would have tightened up the economic screws on the country, if China would have really cut off North Korea, could that be a game changer? We just don't know. But certainly sanctions over the last 10 years haven't stopped 5 nuclear tests and countless missile launches, dozens of them under the current leader, Kim Jong-un.
Will Ripley, thank you very much for that perspective. North Korea demanding to be heard. Christy?
I want to get right to CNN senior White House correspondent Jeff Zeleny, who is live in Riyadh, where the president is this morning. Jeff, good to see you. Any reaction from the White House on this latest missile test yet this morning?
Good morning, Christy. The White House is indeed following what's happening, of course, in North Korea, as Will was just reporting. They're keeping one eye on that, even as they are here for the second full day of the president's trip in Saudi Arabia. But a short time ago, a White House official put out a statement saying this. Let's look at this, Christy. He said, "We are aware that the North Korea launched a medium-range ballistic missile. The system, last tested in February, has a shorter range than the missiles launched in North Korea in the 3 most recent tests. We are referring you to the Department of Defense for more information." So, of course, course, the White House keeping one eye on that, but they, again, are not letting that dominate the conversation here as the president prepares to give what is potentially a major consequential speech this afternoon, Christy.
And what do we know about what he's going to say in this speech? There's a lot of concern about whether he'll use the terminology radical Islamic terrorism.
Right, and at this point, we do not believe he will use that term, but this is so interesting in every respect because we are going to see another chapter of this president, as he grows and changes. We heard so much during the campaign about Muslims. In fact, it was just about a year and 2 months ago, he told CNN, Islam hates us. He, of course, is, not going to say that during this speech. But, Christy, they are definitely trying to both reset his rhetoric and relations with the Middle East. And you could see that already starting earlier today here as the president was meeting with a variety of leaders. And you can see these leaders also trying to perhaps flatter him a bit as well. Watch this short moment with the president of Egypt, El-Sisi, as he's trying to potentially flatter President Trump.
Mr. President, let me express our appreciation and respect, and let me say that you have a unique personality that is capable of doing the impossible. I agree.
So he's calling him someone with a unique personality, and you saw the president there saying he agrees to that. But, Christy, I can tell you the welcome and the reception here in Riyadh for this president has been perhaps something of a respite for him. There's been no talk of the Russia investigation, of course. And when you're driving through the streets of Riyadh, there are billboards, posters, pictures of this U.S. leader and president. And this is something that, of course, did not happen during the Obama administration. I remember being here some 8 years ago when President Obama made his first stop here. Of course, he was treated with respect, but the relations went down from there. So the Trump administration views this, Christy, as a moment to reset these relations. But again, that speech this afternoon to the Muslim world will be watched very carefully. Christy.
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thank you so much for the perspective this morning.
All right, let's discuss with CNN religion editor Daniel Burke, CNN political commentator Era Lewis, and White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Sarah Westwood. Actually, I'm going to start with Sarah first. Let's get your reaction to this latest provocation, I guess is the word to use, from North Korea. What do you think?
Well, I think that this is something maybe the Trump administration would rather not deal with while they're trying to focus on Saudi Arabia. They are having so far a very well-executed trip, and the images that are coming out of Riyadh are exactly what I'm sure the administration wanted to project, this image of a statesman that's being treated very well like a king and in the capital city of one of our allies. So this is exactly what the White House had wanted. They don't necessarily want to have their attention divided. And obviously North Korea is a threat, a totally different regional threat in a different region that's not really where they're trying to focus and promote policy right now. So obviously, I think that's why you see them referring questions to the Pentagon. This is something that they might want to just put a pin in until they return to Washington so they can focus on President Trump's speech today.
Sure, it makes sense. Errol, do you think by any chance this is just coincidence?
Oh, no, by no chance is it coincidence. And the incoming Trump administration was warned by the departing Obama administration that North Korea is, in fact, a threat, that it is a problem, that it is a place where these kind of provocations are to be expected. And when there are sensitive moments in South Korea or for the United States, the easiest thing that they can do is sort of lob a missile somewhere into the ocean. It's a very low-cost bid by the North Korean leader to really put themselves right in the middle of foreign and world affairs.
All right. Hey, Daniel, I want to come to you now and switch to what's happening today in Riyadh. We know that the president is having this speech, as we just talked to Jeff Zeleny, to 50 Muslim leaders, but millions of Muslims around the world are going to be paying attention to what he says. What do Muslims worldwide need to hear from the president today?
Well, you know, Christy, you're absolutely right. This is one of the most anticipated speeches of Trump's young presidency. There's a lot of chatter online about it already. Just to give you an idea, a lot of my Muslim sources have been emailing and texting me asking what time it's going to be. I think when you look at what they would like to see from the speech, it's really three main things. They want Trump to drop the rhetoric about a clash of civilizations between Islam and the West. They don't think that's helpful to anyone except ISIS, who is trying to recruit alienated young Muslims in the West. Number two, they'd like to see Trump drop some of the stereotypes that he's pushed about Muslims, particularly the language about Islam hates us, the language about radical Islamic terrorism. And number three, they'd like some acknowledgement that 1.6 billion Muslims around the world are peace-loving. They are more likely to be the victims of terrorism than members of other religions. And so they just want kind of some nuance around the discussion of Islam, some kind of positive steps forward, and an acknowledgement that Muslims can be part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
Errol, a U.S. official is telling us that the words radical Islamic terrorism, as we've just been discussing, aren't in the early drafts of this speech. I suppose it could change. I suppose also the president could go off record, as it were. Yeah, he's been known to do that. I'm wondering just why is that phrase so offensive in that particular region?
Well, I mean, look, the notion that you're going to sort of link the two, Islamic terrorism, that there's something about Islam that generates terrorism, it's a sensitive sort of a topic, to say the least. And, you know, there's been an entire sort of political movement built around the notion that speaking them as if they were magic words, some kind of incantation, was a way to defeat ISIS, was a way to advance the U.S. interests, and was in fact used as a way to sort of criticize the prior administration. What everyone has said, you'll hear this in Israel, you'll hear this in Washington, you'll hear this from every diplomat you can find, is that if you want to inflame almost 2 billion people around the world, that's the way to do it.
Well, so, that is true of Muslims, but in the American world, in an audience that our president plays to, it goes over actually particularly strong. In fact, listen to this.
We have a leader that doesn't even want to discuss the name of the problem. And the problem is radical Islamic terrorism. I don't even know if he knows what the hell's going on. I really don't. He refuses to say it. He can't say it. There's something going on. I don't know what it is.
The first thing you need is a president that's going to mention the problem. And he won't even mention what the problem is. And unless you're going to say it's radical Islamic terrorism and hate, unless you're going to say that, it's going to be, you're never going to solve it.
So, Sarah, if the president doesn't say those words today, what are those who supported him back home in America supposed to think?
Well, today I don't think that his base at home is his audience. His audience is the Muslim community. His audience is really more international. And so maybe more than any other speech he's given to date, his base is probably the last constituency that the White House is considering as they're crafting this speech. The speech is meant to showcase the role the U.S. sees for the Muslim community in eradicating terrorism. It's not meant to rally up his base back home. It's meant to build U.S. credibility with our Muslim allies. So that's something that the White House probably took under consideration, that perhaps the words radical Islamic terrorism would do more to undermine the main goals of this speech. It wouldn't add anything, and so I think that that's why you see them strongly considering withholding that phrase.
Daniel, last thoughts? We only have a couple of seconds.
Well, it's interesting, just on that phrase, the White House put out a statement with Saudi Arabia about their cooperation going forward, and the term they used was countering violent extremism, which is the very phrase that Trump was criticizing Obama for using over the years. So that's an interesting progression there.
All right, yeah, Daniel Burke, thank you so much. Errol and Sarah, I know you're going to stick around with us, and we appreciate that as well. Good to have your voices. Thank you. Now, Iran, we should point out, is watching President Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia quite cautiously, as Secretary of State Rex Tillerson spoke out on U.S. relations with the country. We're going to tell you what he said.
Also in Saudi Arabia, President Trump is hosting, yes, a Twitter forum addressing combating violent extremism online. Now, skeptics are concerned his own inflammatory rhetoric could worsen U.S.-Muslim relations.
And the presidential race for 2020 heating up? A surprise candidate announces a bid on Saturday Night Live. Is The Rock ready to take on the White House?
In the past, I never would have considered running for president. I mean, I didn't think I was qualified at all, but now I'm actually worried that I'm too qualified. Well,
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Thailand's colorful charm, sensory novelty, myriad choices, and plethora of destinations. Vibrant journeys that redefine success begin in the land of smiles. Join us on a vibrant journey to business success. Your vibrant journey to business success. Thailand Connect, your global business events connection.
In my program, I try to make it as much about the field as about the studio. We have to bring in all our great correspondents and their reports into this program so that that can be used as a bit of a starting block to interview the major world leaders. Really nice to see must be their first cycling president. But also people who are real experts, who are real players, people who've been there. So it's not just an interview program. It is about the storytelling and the reporting that I've done all my life and that our colleagues continue to do. You take the risk even though you know a lot of people died.
20 years after the massacre here in Srebrenica, families of the victims are still looking for closure.
I try to go several layers beneath the breaking news and try to really put it into context, to dig for understanding and meaning and solutions.
Amanpour on CNN. CNN World Rugby. It's the Sevens World Series for both men and women. We've got the numbers and the names. Follow the rugby action on and off the pitch with CNN's Alex Thomas and Christina McFarlane. We'll bring you match highlights and training tips. Kick off your weekend with CNN World Rugby. Saturday on CNN. In association with DHL.
He's one of the youngest billionaires in the world, and he's engaged to supermodel Miranda Kerr. Evan Spiegel's stake in Snapchat hit $6 billion the day its parent company IPO'd. It gained fame as the disappearing message app, but now Snap is calling itself a camera company, also making spectacles for snapping videos on the go. Spiegel quit university before getting a degree, so he could set up Snapchat with co-founder Bobby Murphy, just months before his 21st birthday. It was such a success that Facebook reportedly offered to buy it in 2013 for $3 billion. But Snapchat said no. Now they have over 100 million users every day, and what started as a disappearing picture app is now a fixture on the New York Stock Exchange. And that's Evan Spiegel in 60 seconds.
Our planet's future hangs in the balance. We need to find solutions for Earth's big issues. Solutions to fight deforestation, to produce renewable energy, to clean our oceans and air, and solutions to revitalize our cities.
On Eco Solutions, we talk to people who are taking steps to help balance our environmental challenges and who show us how to make better choices every day.
Eco Solutions, Wednesday on CNN. All new Inside Africa. Unlocking the mysteries behind the continent you thought you knew. Journey through Zambia's most majestic river for a centuries-old celebration.
It is a national pride. It unifies people.
Inside Africa, Tuesday, only on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
If you're just joining us, we have breaking news that's unfolding right now on the Korean Peninsula.
North Korea interrupting President Trump's second full day of overseas diplomacy with a new missile test. This just hours before the president is going to be giving a major speech there in Saudi Arabia. The White House says what they know of this is that it has a shorter range than the missiles launched in North Korea's 3 most recent tests. But clearly North Korea trying to interrupt and take some attention away from what President Trump is doing in the Middle East this hour.
And as President Trump gets ready for his speech on Islam in Saudi Arabia and the next stop in his itinerary, which is Israel, 2 of Iran's biggest adversaries. The U.S. relationship with Iran is changing under President Trump, that we know. He had vowed to scrap the Iran nuclear deal crafted by former President Obama. But so far, his administration says that that is actually working. Let me bring back our political panel right now, Errol Lewis and Sarah Westwood. And first, Let's listen to the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, and what he was talking about in regards to Iran yesterday.
Well, in terms of whether I'd ever pick the phone up, I've never shut off the phone to anyone that wants to talk or have a productive conversation. At this point, I have no plans to call my counterpart in Iran, although in all likelihood we will talk at the right time.
So is he just being diplomatic, excuse the pun, but or is he really being serious? Do you think, Sarah, that he is sort of foreshadowing some kind of conversation or meeting with Iran?
Well, I think the Trump administration has been careful, particularly early on, not to shut the door to anyone. They've even been open to talks with Kim Jong-un if the North Korean leader was willing to do so. So it would be a remarkable shift if they did slam the door in Tehran's face. But at the same time, the U.S. under President Trump has begun to shift away from Iran, shift back towards Saudi Arabia and Israel, and reorienting the Middle East around our more traditional allies, whereas President Obama was very focused on thawing the ice between Washington and Tehran, and he didn't necessarily care, or at least hold in high regard, the concerns of Israel or Saudi Arabia about that shift. And so I think that's part of why you're seeing this royal welcome for President Trump. A big part of it is this expectation that President Trump is going to refreeze Iran out. That makes the Saudis very happy.
It makes them very happy. I wonder what all of this, especially yesterday when we saw how the red carpet was really rolled out for the president, how Iran is looking at this. Errol, what do you think they're thinking this morning?
Well, they just finished their own election, and of course they've made a decision. With 57%, Hassan Rouhani has won re-election, and he very openly, if you listen to what was said on their campaign trail, Martin, he said, you know, violence and extremism, those who wanted to rule the country by executions, your era is over, your day is over. Now, that has a nuanced meaning, and it doesn't necessarily mean everything can change between the U.S. and Iran, but there are some issues that are out there, and if the U.S. wants to exploit them, if Tillerson wants to speak not just with the foreign minister, but sort of broaden U.S. outreach to some of the cultural organizations, some of the dissidents, and change things around, you know, it is a matter of doing some of what happened back in the 1970s when the U.S. would play Russia against China and play a very delicate kind of back and forth to try and have them compete with each other and have the U.S. sort of advance its own interests. Something like that could happen in the Middle East if Tillerson is nimble enough to take advantage of it.
And that's the real question. This requires a very delicate hand in a region that is pretty much militarily and politically on fire. Sarah, the concern I have is that the Trump administration clearly is making a very hard turn in the direction of Saudi Arabia and the Sunnis. And even though Iran has re-elected a moderate, are we listening anymore to what Iran is doing?
I think we're paying very close attention. I mean, you look at the Trump administration, it was just about a month ago that they signaled that they were reviewing the Iran nuclear agreement that President Obama forged. They didn't tear it up on day one like President Trump had promised to do. They're instead looking over exactly how compliance has worked since it was finalized and how remaining sanctions are being implemented, and deciding very carefully whether they're going to keep that in place or whether they're going to maybe renegotiate some of the terms or just scrap it all together. But you don't see them rushing into any kind of decision here 6 months out. And I think that even makes some of his own supporters a little miffed as to why the deal didn't get torn up on day one, as President Trump and almost all of the other GOP presidential candidates had promised. But this is an approach that is allowing the administration to look at all their options so they don't make any mistake. As Errol said, it's a very nuanced situation, and any quick moves could have lasting implications.
Right, which is probably why cooler heads are always welcome. Errol Louis and Sarah Westwood, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, President Trump is taking on violent extremism online via Twitter. This, as the Wall Street Journal reporting this morning that the president's aides staged an intervention to get him to scale back on the tweets.
President Trump's Saudi Arabia visit is putting his business ties in the region back in focus. We'll take a look at those as well.
His name alone sets hearts aflutter.
Hi, I'm Gong Il.
At 37, he is South Korea's man of the moment. This month, we're with the actor in Seoul as he opens up about his reluctant stardom.
What don't you like about fame?
And reveals perhaps what fans want to know most.
Are you a good kisser?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Watch me on Talk Asia, only on CNN.
Talk Asia, Thursday on CNN. Go inside the world of horse racing on CNN's Winning Post.
This month we're at America's greatest race, the Kentucky Derby, here at Churchill Downs.
Thursday on CNN, in association with Longines. An island paradise, known for its bounty of beautiful beaches. But there's much more to the Philippines. Come with us to explore ancient customs and new flavors. Gaze at the curious and the spectacular. We're island hopping to seek out the country's hidden treasures. Destination Philippines, Wednesday on CNN.
I'm Delia Gallagher in Vatican City, and this is CNN.
Because leaving home doesn't mean living less. Stay at a hotel that has the news source you trust. Stay at a CNN partner hotel.
Sign up for the Quest Means Business daily email newsletter. Go to cnnmoney.com/quest for the global business news you need delivered to your inbox at the end of the New York day before Asia opens. cnnmoney.com/quest.
And watch Quest Means Business on CNN.
I'm Clarissa Ward in northern Syria. This is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news this hour, a defiant North Korea creating more foreign policy distractions for the White House this morning. The reclusive regime fired off another ballistic missile overnight, causing U.S. and South Korean officials to scramble to try to gain more information here. Now, the White House is referring questions this hour to the Department of Defense.
This as President Trump prepares to give a high-profile speech in Saudi Arabia. That's going to take place in just a few hours, hoping to ease the relations with the Muslim world. But skeptics are concerned about the impact of the president's words after he spent the majority of his campaign criticizing Muslims.
So I want to bring in CNN military analyst and Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona here for more perspective. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for being with us. First of all, what is your immediate reaction to this latest launch, just 1 week after one of the most successful launches thus far we've seen?
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, what we're seeing is this continual march toward the development of an ICBM. Each one of these missile tests teaches them something. We don't know exactly what component of the missile they were testing on this particular launch, but each time they launched, they learned something new. They may have been testing a new fuel mixture, a new launch mechanism, a different guidance system. It's all toward this inevitable quest to have an ICBM that can carry a nuclear warhead. So, and this is the part of the program that we can see. We see the missile tests. If there's another nuclear test, we'll see that. What we don't see is the design of the nuclear warhead. We know they're working on it. We don't know where they are in that process. At some point, all of this is going to come together, and they're going to present the world with a capability that none of us want them to have.
Mm-hmm. We're essentially seeing what they want us to see right now. So we heard from Will Ripley, who is one of the only reporters to have been in North Korea, and he told us last half hour that North Korea has told him they don't care about sanctions. How many missiles is it going to take before there is some action taken against them, and what action might that be that could have a real consequence?
Well, that's the real problem. Nothing up until now has seemed to deter the North Koreans. You're right, sanctions aren't working because sanctions don't hit those that make the decisions. Sanctions are hurting the people of North Korea, but not hurting the government. They're not slowing the program down. You know, the North Koreans, they're good engineers, they're good scientists, and they're building really good equipment, and they're going to continue this. So what will deter them? I don't know. And you ask how many missiles is it going to take? It's not so many how many missiles it takes, it's the capability. When they present a capability that we regard as an existential threat to the United States or a threat that we cannot live with, then we'll have to do something. Up until now, nothing has worked. Diplomatic pressure, economic pressure. So what's next? Do we go to that military step? You know, that's the last step. So there's a whole lot of steps between now and then. But at some point, the North Koreans have to understand what our position is. And I would really like to see the administration come out with a definitive, you cannot do this, like we did with the Iranians years ago and said, we will not allow you to have a nuclear device.
One more quick question. That Will made a point of saying this was launched from Pukchong, which is home to their nuclear plant. Anything that stands out to you in that regard?
You know, they've been launching from different locations, and I think they're just showing more capabilities. You know, and one of the things we saw in this last parade were more mobile missiles, which really complicates the targeting process. And I think that's not lost on us either. And I think they're sending that message that, you know, we don't have like one missile field. We've got a capability to move this all over the country. So it really complicates American targeting should that become an issue.
Good point. Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona, always appreciate your perspective. Thank you for taking the time.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump is leaning on Twitter to counter violent extremism online. He's expected to bring up the topic in a Twitter forum later today. This as the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president's aide staged an intervention, hoping to get him to scale back on the tweets. CNN White House reporter Jeremy Diamond is live in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Jeremy, all eyes, you know, are going to be, and all ears, I should say, on the president's speech today. He is in the past talked about this phrase, radical Islamic terrorism, and there's sort of a back and forth as to whether or not he may use it today. What do you expect?
Well, you know, we're not quite sure yet. You know, a draft that's been circling in the last couple of days, White House officials confirming to CNN that that draft, at least, did not have those words, radical Islamic terrorism, in the speech. However, what's unclear is whether or not the words will be in the final version of the text, which aides and the president are working in these final hours to finesse and rework. One thing is clear, though, is that his speech today, as he looks to potentially reset relations with the Muslim world, well, behind all of that is going to be what the president has said on the campaign trail. Of course, you'll remember back in March of 2016, the president said that he believed, quote, Islam hates us. Those words still very much searing today as the president prepares to deliver his speech in Saudi Arabia. And beyond that, there's also the total and complete shutdown of Muslims that the president called for during the campaign. And more recently, the travel ban against 6 Muslim-majority countries that the president and his administration are continuing to defend in U.S. federal courts. So, you know, the president will be trying to reset relationships, his relationship with the Muslim world, particularly so that he can confront ISIS and other terrorist groups along with a lot of these Muslim countries, including Saudi Arabia. But it'll be a real test to see whether the 1.6 billion Muslims in the world can move past the president's rhetoric in the campaign and listen to him today and look at him today with fresh eyes.
Right. I mean, that is truly, well, we'll have to wait for the president to use his own words. I am fascinated, though, about this forum, this Twitter forum, Fascinated because of the notorious relationship the president has with that. And also, what is it about? What's it designed to do?
Well, what I've heard so far is that the president is going to deliver some remarks this evening in Riyadh at this Tweeps Forum, which is designed to discuss how social media, including Twitter, can be used to confront radical Islamist ideologies that fuel terrorist groups like ISIS. Of course, we know social media is a key recruiting platform for a lot of these terrorist groups, and so we're expecting the president to discuss the ways in which he believes Twitter and other social media platforms can be used to counter those ideologies. That's something that we haven't heard the president speak of so far, but as you mentioned, he is an avid Twitter user. It gets him into trouble a lot of the time, but we'll have to see whether he can offer helpful tips for the ways in which this forum, this social media platform can be used for good.
You can only wonder what is going to come out of this one. All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy Dunn.
And President Trump's visit to the Middle East raising some questions as well regarding possible business conflicts in that region. We'll have details on that.
Plus, controversial Milwaukee sheriff David Clark accused of plagiarizing. What CNN's K-File uncovered about his thesis on Homeland Security.
All new Inside Africa. Unlocking the mysteries behind the continent you thought you knew. Journey through Zambia's most majestic river for a centuries-old celebration.
It is a national pride. It unifies people.
Inside Africa, Tuesday, only on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank.
Hello? What time's the flight? No one asked us to go. Friends, not family.
Hello.
No one asked us to go. Into the storm, into the chaos, into the heartbreak. It's the story that drives us forward.
Welcome.
It's the story that needs to be heard.
We have the member. We have right.
So be interesting. It's the story that needs to be told. This is why we go.
We have breaking news out of Dominique, Greece. Let's go live to CNN senior international correspondent Nimel Bach.
For the Syrians and their families.
CNN World Rugby. It's the Sevens World Series for both men and women. We've got the numbers and the names. Follow the rugby action on and off the pitch with CNN's Alex Thomas and Christina McFarlane. We'll bring you match highlights and training tips. Kick off your weekend with CNN World Rugby. Saturday on CNN. In association with DHL.
The country has its new president. This is the State of America.
Join me, Kate Baldwin, for the latest in U.S. politics, the Donald Trump presidency, and a nation divided. We have smart people.
A political win is often not a win for the taxpayers.
And smart discussions.
What would the role be? Is this even possible?
Absolutely, it's possible.
And a whole lot of fun.
My ears are melting off of my head after this.
State of America with Kate Baldwin, Tuesday through Friday on CNN.
President Trump is wrapping up his last day in Saudi Arabia before heading off to Israel. In a couple of hours, he is hoping a speech on Islam will reset relations with Muslims and hammer home the need for a partnership to fight terrorism.
In the meantime, the president's venture into the Middle East is putting a spotlight on how entwined his business dealings are abroad. Here's CNN's national politics reporter, MJ Lee.
Donald Trump arriving in Saudi Arabia today, the first stop in his inaugural foreign trip as president. Trump hoping to use the 9-day tour to reset his tumultuous presidency at home as questions about his campaign's ties to Russia continue to swirl.
We have to get back to running this country really, really well.
But the president's highly anticipated Middle East visit once again raising fresh questions about potential business conflicts in the region, where Trump has a long history of real estate investments.
Saudi Arabia, and I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me, they spend 40 million, 50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much.
Trump's vast business empire spans the globe, including apartment buildings, hotels, and golf courses. According to his 2016 financial disclosure, Trump had 144 registered companies with dealings in more than 24 countries. 8 of them were Saudi companies, and all of them were recently dissolved or canceled. Since Election Day, Trump taking steps to distance himself from his family business, turning control of his company over to his adult sons.
Don and Eric are going to be running the company. They are going to be running it in a very professional manner. They're not going to discuss it with me. Again, I don't have to do this. They're not going to discuss it with me.
But Trump's critics not convinced that he has severed himself completely from his business empire. A group of Democratic senators sending a letter this week to the Trump Organization about its continued ties to the president. The senators writing, this continuing financial relationship raises serious concerns about whether the Trump Organization is effectively a pass-through for income that violates the Constitution's 2 emoluments clauses. Trump's second stop in his foreign trip, Israel, where he has also had business interests over the years. Now, I should also note that Donald Trump is not the only person on this trip whose business interests in the region have come under scrutiny. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he also has a long history of business ties in the country of Israel, so his past investments there have also drawn some interest. And this is particularly important because he is the person in the Trump administration now who is overseeing the Middle East peace agreement, so a lot to look out for there as well. Now, I did reach out to the Trump Organization earlier to ask whether the Trump Organization did or did not have business ties in Saudi Arabia, and the top lawyer at the company emailing me earlier to say, no, it does not currently have any ties in Saudi Arabia. Back to you.
And you can bet they are going to be following this one very closely. Meanwhile, controversial Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark now is accused of plagiarism, what one CNN investigative team has uncovered.
Also, protests are violent in Venezuela. Thousands of people turn out to mark 50 days of anti-government marches in the country. We'll tell you more about what happened and show you more of the pictures we're getting in.
In 2011, we at EDOF planted a seed with the aim of creating an ever-expanding forest. We nurtured that seed and helped it grow. Inspired by the ethics of giving, our seed grew into a strong tree. Branches emerged with similar aims of compassion, humanitarianism, and love. We spread our seeds to help even more people, as blessed is the influence of one true loving human soul on another. In Syria, our aim is to provide relief to 12 million in need, 3.8 million refugees, about half of whom are children. We use our reach to raise awareness of the 30 million slaves in the world today, of the thousands of children trafficked through Europe and the US. We continue to grow, into cutting-edge medical research. Our mission, make a difference to people's health, save lives, and support NGOs that plant more seeds.
where they were attacked on Tuesday.
We're getting new details of how the terrorists operated.
This town is completely blanketed in ash. It's hard to breathe.
This can't really be happening.
This shot tells a story.
Pope Francis will make his way to this path.
The live shot is ready. Stand by in 3, 2.
What did you uncover following developments in Nigeria? What was just announced? Let's just talk about this ISIS attack.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Robin.
That's right, Robin.
His name alone sets hearts aflutter.
Hi, I'm Gong Yoo.
At 37, he is South Korea's man of the moment. This month, we're with the actor in Seoul as he opens up about his reluctant stardom.
What don't you like about fame?
And reveals perhaps what fans want to know most.
Are you a good kisser?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Watch me on Talk Asia, only on CNN.
Talk Asia, Thursday on CNN. An island paradise, known for its bounty of beautiful beaches. But there's much more to the Philippines. Come with us to explore ancient customs and new flavors. Gaze at the curious and the spectacular. We're island hopping to seek out the country's hidden treasures. Destination Philippines, Wednesday on CNN. Our planet's future hangs in the balance. We need to find solutions for Earth's big issues. Solutions to fight deforestation, to produce renewable energy, to clean our oceans and air, and solutions to revitalize our cities.
On Eco Solutions, we talk to people who are taking steps to help balance our environmental challenges and who show us how to make better choices every day.
Eco Solutions, Wednesday on CNN.
I'm Samuel Burke, and this is CNN.
These are some of the latest pictures we're getting in from San Cristobal in Venezuela. This is where anti-government protesters hit the streets. This was yesterday, as they marked 50 days of protests against the unpopular government there. Now, the death toll is up. Now, 47 people have died since these demonstrations began just last month. Around 2,000 National Guard troops and 600 Special Operations Forces have been deployed to quell those protests. And according to CNN's K-File, an investigative arm of CNN, controversial Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark is accused of plagiarizing large parts of his 2013 master's thesis on Homeland Security.
Yeah, CNN's K-File, which is, as we point out, an investigative team, exposed Sheriff Clark for lifting passages verbatim, but not quoting the material. In fact, Clark failed to properly attribute his sources at least 47 times, and even lifted language from President George W. Bush's book Decision Points. Clark immediately attacked the report on Twitter, saying it was the reporter's MO to accuse plagiarism. I'm next.
Clark is best known for being one of the most outspoken supporters of President Trump during his campaign. Remember, he even spoke at the Republican National Convention last summer and had a heated exchange with our Don Lemon over police shootings and Black Lives Matter.
Don, I wish you had that message of civility
have a conversation
toward this hateful ideology, these purveyors of hate.
You don't know what my message is.
That's
what I want to say to you is,
these people
let me
preach
are you going to get a word in?
This is the latest headline, though, regarding the sheriff. Last week, Sheriff Clark announced that he's taking a job as the assistant DHS secretary. The Department of Homeland Security, though, later said no announcement had been made regarding Clark's appointment.
Jury selection in the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial will get underway Monday. Up to 125 potential jurors are going to be interviewed each day. Cosby faces 3 counts of felony aggravated indecent assault from an alleged incident back in 2004 involving a Temple University employee. She is just one of more than 50 women who have accused Cosby of sexual misconduct. The trial will take place in Pittsburgh, set to start in early June.
And take a look at this. A passenger jet crashed into a utility truck. This was at Los Angeles International Airport. It was taxiing to its gate yesterday. The right wing of an Aeromexico flight struck that truck, and the truck tipped over. Now, 8 people had to be taken to local hospitals with, thankfully, non-life-threatening injuries. None of the 149 passengers on the plane were injured, but the plane sustained minor damage, and the cause of that crash, of course, now under investigation.
And we want to take you back visually to Saudi Arabia, show you these live images that are coming from the kingdom there today. Second day of President Trump's visit. Very big day in his speech that he is going to make just a short while from now. We'll have more on that after the break.
Tonight, President Trump's first foreign trip. 5 countries in 9 days, and a major address to the Islamic world. What will his message be to the religion he said hates America? Fareed Zakaria, GPS, tonight on CNN.
Everyone deserves a decent place to live.
Everyone.
Decent shelter is something we all need to thrive. When a future homeowner partners with Habitat for Humanity to build or improve a home.
Build.
They build a better future for themselves and their families.
For my family.
For my family.
For my family.
Para mi familia. Your support empowers a family to help themselves. Help.
Assiste.
Your support helps another family in your community or around the world achieve strength, stability, self-reliance.
Strength. Fuerza.
With a little help, we all have the potential to stand on our own.
Potential.
Through shelter, we empower. Visit Habitat.org to provide help to families like these today.
Go inside the world of horse racing on CNN's Winning Post.
This month, we're at America's greatest race, the Kentucky Derby, here at Churchill Downs.
Thursday on CNN, in association with Longines.
I'm Linda Kincaid in Atlanta, and this is CNN.
Because leaving home doesn't mean living less. Stay at a hotel that has the news source you trust. Stay at a CNN partner hotel.
Business is always changing. Keep up with CNN Money. Maggie Lake is live in the heart of the world's economic epicenter, New York City, tracking all the action of the stock exchanges and the big business stories from around the world. Get top analysis of market movement and a daily breakdown of financial headlines. CNN Money with Maggie Lake. Weeknights only on CNN.
I'm Matt Rivers in Lhasa, Tibet, and this is CNN.
I want to bring you some live pictures this hour from Saudi Arabia. This is the Arab Islamic American Summit that is going to be getting underway here shortly. This is the moment that a lot of people have been waiting for, as we're going to hear from President Trump giving a speech on Muslim relations with the West. And it has been characterized by the White House as a need to confront radical ideology, and the president hoping for a peaceful vision of Islam to dominate across the world. When he does step up to the podium to give that speech, we will certainly be bringing it to you live. That happening at some point this morning.
We'll continue to watch the scene here because it obviously looks like we're anticipating some kind of arrival. And that may very well be the President of the United States. So that's why we keep flipping back and forth. We don't actually have control of these photos. These are actually coming to us from Saudi Arabia. But the very interesting thing is how much of this has been broadcast by Saudi Arabia, which, as we've said on a number of occasions, reiterates the importance that Saudi Arabia sees on all of this. We'll continue to follow. And when we see things develop, we'll come back to it. Meanwhile, moving on to SNL, a serenade from the cast of Saturday Night Live as they bid farewell to their highest-rated season in 23 years, and I think I know who they can thank for that.
Do you think? Some of the stars responsible for those ratings, including, of course, Alec Baldwin's Donald Trump, returned to take one last shot at the current White House. What can we expect from the future of this show is the question. And will some of the fan favorites, including Baldwin, Melissa McCarthy, are they going to be back for more? Let's talk about it with CNN media analyst Bill Carter. Bill, he's the author, I should point out, of The War for Late Night, When Leno Went Early and Television Went Crazy. Bill, how much life do you think there is in these characters for SNL?
Well, I think, watching what they did last night, it seems like they don't know. I mean, that sort of Hallelujah song, which was a callback to the episode where Hillary Clinton had lost the election and she sang this, her character sang the song, really means I think they don't know what's going to happen in September when they get back. Will these characters, many of them like Sean Spicer, who wasn't there, may not be, back again. It was kind of an interesting and curious choice, I thought, to use that as the end to what has been an incredibly busy political satire season.
Bill, even, the visiting host, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, he had some mocking of the president and, well, even announced he may be stepping into politics. Let's just take a quick listen.
I think that was also kind of interesting.
Hold on, Bill. Let's just play it so people know what we're talking about here, and then I'll ask you. Play the clip.
In the past, I never would have considered running for president. I mean, I didn't think I was qualified at all, but now I'm actually worried that I'm too qualified.
Well, the truth is, America needs us.
Okay, so serious or funny in that?
Well, I think a little of both in a way, because obviously you would say, no one expected Donald Trump to run for president. He was a show business figure, really. And I think Dwayne Johnson is very popular, and Tom Hanks is enormously popular.
Mm-hmm.
You would think if they ran, well, why not at this point? I do think the whole idea was sort of to be lighter, though, this time. There wasn't a lot of haymakers thrown at Trump this week.
Well, that's a ticket that could win it. I'll just say that.
I think so.
Okay. Bill Carter, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us this morning.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.